Welcome back to the Spectra Creative Channel. I'm your host, Scott Toy Guru Nightlick, and I've made a lot of videos about the toy industry talking about things like a master toy license and what that is. As a quick refresh, that means it is a license to make toys for a certain IP, intellectual property, like Star Wars, for a variety of form factors, action figures, puzzles, Bop It bags, etc. And master toy licenses have more or less sunsetted in the toy industry, and now licenses get cut up in a lot of ways, and it is best to use a warm knife. I want to make sure people are clear about that. And an example of a license getting split up is recently the DC Batman toy license was split up. It used to be with Mattel in full, and now it's between Spin Master, who makes smaller, more kid-oriented product, and McFarlane Toys, who makes larger adult collector-oriented product. And there's different ways licenses are split. One of the more unfortunate ways is something called splicing, which is where two companies make virtually the same toy, and there's very minor differences. But there are positive ways licenses are split up. Now, while most of the time large toy companies, the Mattels, the Hasbros, the MGAs, etc., tend to scoop up the really hot licenses, the Marvels, the Star Wars, the DC, the Power Rangers, well, smaller toy companies obviously want a piece of the pie, and of course are going to use that recommended hot knife in order to cut out a part of the license. But how do they do that, and how do they avoid doing it with splicing, where they're not making the same thing? Well, looking at the Marvel license as just a random example, because I happen to like Spider-Man, right now, Hasbro has a big lock on this license, meaning they have many different scales, many articulation levels, many territories, and many audiences, collector, kid, gift givers, etc. And more or less, if it's an articulated plastic action figure, it's with Hasbro. So that means a smaller toy company has to really go through a back door, which is a very good idea. How do they do this? Well, they start by looking at the contract and see what are the perimeters of the license that a big toy company has. And I was just using Hasbro and Marvel as an example. So a lot of times the same toy is made at multiple scales or in multiple materials or in different territories. These are common ways that licenses get split up. So you could see the same figure made of concrete or plastic. Well, I don't know how much fun a concrete toy would be. A good example of a scale is when Jakks Pacific did their Big Figs line, they had 31-inch Star Wars articulated action figures. 31-inch, right? Seems kind of like an odd number to have Darth Vader and clone troopers at. Well, the reason for 31 inches, not 30, not 32, is because that was the limit of Hasbro's Star Wars contract. They could make articulated plastic Star Wars toys up to 30 inches. So 31 inches was just above the waterline. It was 1 inch more than the contract. Now, while you might see this as a loophole, it really is more a creative solution. It's looking at, well, is there a gap in the market, and can we fill that outside of the contract? So let's kind of look at a real-world example or a real-world solution of how this applies to the toy industry. And when you're dealing with the real world in toys, you're really dealing with toy real-world solutions, which can be a little different because toys have a little bit more creativity. When I was at Jada Toys as their VP of Marketing and Development, I was brought in on their diecast line. Mostly Jada is known for making diecast vehicles. Their Just Trucks line is one of their most popular. And while they got their start doing diecast vehicles, they eventually branched out into doing diecast figures, and that was why I was brought in. I was known as an action figure marketing guy from my time at Mattel and Jakks, etc. So they had their Jakks metal Black Panther figure. Looks very much like a Funko Pop, right? It's literally the same scale, and it's kind of super deformed with a larger head, smaller arms. The difference is the Funko figure is made of plastic. The Jakks figure is made of die-cast metal. And there you go. That's the difference. Neither one is articulated, although the head might spin or be a bobblehead on some of them, but it's not intended to be a pivot point. It really just is due to the manufacturing. Either way, they're very similar, but they're made of different material. And because Jakks was doing such successful business with the die-cast figures, we were able to do them in a new scale, meaning we shrunk them down and did what is now known as the Jada Nano line, and did that across a ton of licenses. DC, Marvel, Street Fighter, Harry Potter, even G.I. Joe got in there, and Transformers too. And it was a great way to do figures of an IP without doing splicing. So, as an example, here is the Jada Nano Metal diecast 1966 Batman. This is more or less an action figure. It's not articulated, it's made of metal, but it's still a toy action figure. Now here is Mattel's 6-inch scale 1966 Batman action figure made of plastic with articulation. The difference is articulation level and material. It's the exact same character. It's not splicing because unlike the Hasbro and Mattel Star Wars spaceships, which were virtually the same exact thing at the same price point, just with slightly different amounts of diecast, with those figures, they're totally different. A great other example is Pinmates. This was a line I worked on while I was at Entertainment Earth. Pinmates are wooden collectibles, or wooden action figures. You don't need arms and legs to be an action figure. They are a nostalgia form factor based on the old Fisher-Price Little People, the vintage ones before 1984 when they got changed for reasons. That's a whole other YouTube video. But there is a lot of equity in this and a lot of nostalgia. As an example, one of the premier Pinmates is Lucky the dog, spelled with 2 E's for Entertainment Earth. Luck E, get it? Entertainment Earth, E-E. So this was sort of an homage to Lucky the dog, who was one of the more famous Little People figures from the vintage line. And it was directly meant to market the line to be collectible for people who grew up. It was nostalgia-based, and there are definitely Fisher-Price collectors who picked up on this. And here you can see a collection of Lucky the dogs over the years, and right there is the Entertainment Earth Pinmate Lucky the dog right in front. Collectors of superheroes and modern collectors have also gravitated towards Pinmates, seeing that it's another way to collect their favorite brand. So here, once again, is Batman 1966, but now it is in a new form factor and a different material. Why is it that Entertainment Earth can produce a 1966 Batman figure when at the same time Jada is making one and other companies like Mattel? Well,
because they're made of wood. Good!
So the material and the articulation level of the figure is what separates it, so that it doesn't interfere and it doesn't step on the toes of other Batman 1966 figures. It's not splicing because this Jada metal figure is not the same as this Mattel plastic figure. And the same thing with that previous Black Panther example. This is different from the Funko and the metal figure because, again, made of wood, not articulated. So this license allowed Entertainment Earth to do some really, really creative things like this Infinity Gauntlet set from Comic-Con, which is honestly one of my favorite toys I ever got to work on. It's so cute and it's so awesome. So this really goes to show that the toy business is a creative person's game. The more creative you are, the more you can succeed. And having a very in-depth knowledge of, well, the fascinating history of toys really gives you an advantage. Pinmates and the Jada Nano are both perfect examples. I'm not tooting my own horn, but you could see how they fall into that category of knowing about the history of toys and different materials that can allow you to create the future of play, and to do this without stepping on the toes of another company and offering the exact same product at an only slight difference, like, again, sorry to show the image 3 times, but splicing. This is the same toy. It hung next to each other at the same price point. It's very different from finding creative solutions. The benefit of these type of creative solutions is that for kids and collectors, both young and old, out there who want to get, say, one character, it allows you to have that character in new ways. Lucky the dog, again, or an even better example, an Aquaman collector. You can get Aquaman in all sorts of form factors and all sorts of materials. If you are into one character, this is the perfect solution for that. And by the way, whoever that Aquaman collector out there is, There is a pin made for Aquaman. I didn't see that in your collection. So yet another way you can collect your favorite character. And that is how clever toy companies can maximize IP and make better product for more collectors out there. I hope you enjoyed this video. Subscribe, ring the bell, leave a comment below. I always answer them. And thanks for watching.